Hello everybody, my name is X Factor and the Battlefield 4 fall update is finally upon us, including the community-driven map Operation Outbreak, free to everybody that owns Battlefield 4, no matter what platform that you have. And with that came a different looking set of patch notes, a new format, and much more detail. We're going to cover everything you need to know because there was a lot of overhauling done in Battlefield 4, and it all starts with a massive vehicle pass. Ground vehicles, they've improved mobility and countermeasures to make vehicles more powerful overall. Air vehicles, below radar support is back. They've improved countermeasures and overhauled the AA missile balance for a more dynamic setup. Vehicle weapons have been rebalanced to give a more meaningful spectrum of choices between competing options per vehicle. All weapons should have a good use case and niche now. Mobile AA. Reduce effective range of it so it has to advance into the fray a bit more while still maintaining its role as the counter to aircraft, no longer the anti-anything. And it starts off breaking down the active radar. The new role for these missiles is long-range combat. It has worst tracking at low to medium range and lowest damage of all AA missiles, with less available total ammo shots have to be taken with more care. This affects the MAA and Stealth Jet, a mixture of buffs and nerfs, but a more defined role. Passive radar also has a more defined role. It's focused on being anti-jet. It'll have good top speed and pre-firing, allowing you for setting up traps, but the hold lock mechanic gives targets good chances of evading. Also prevents use of main cannons while they're in the air. These changes also affect all vehicles, such as stealth jets, mobile AA, and attack boats that carry them. Also, a big-time mix of nerfs and a couple buffs in there as well. Heat seekers have been changed as well. Fire and forget style missile for closer ranges than active radar, with better damage and ammo availability. Medium type of damage. These changes impact all vehicles with a weapon, stealth jet, attack jets, scout helicopters, attack helicopters, and mobile AA. Again, a big mixture of nerfs. Up next is the laser-guided secondary weapon. Damage against laser designations has been corrected. Lock range has been increased except for jets. You will no longer one-hit aircraft that are laser designated. Laser designated can also properly track fast-moving targets. And there is a lock range increased to 650 meters and reduced time to lock down to 1.2 seconds. Tow missiles are pretty much the same. The damage against laser designations has been corrected. Lock range has been increased. No longer will one-hit aircraft with a designation, and it can hit the faster targets. Range increased to 650 and reduced the lock time to 1.2 seconds. Up next is Zuni rockets. Change speed and acceleration to give them a more natural trajectory. This change applies to the attack boat, MAA, and infantry fighting vehicles. A little bit more fluid gameplay for those. Gunner incendiary is going to be a little bit more dangerous. Added blast damage to make it actually dangerous to infantry, improve the velocity, and increase the range. Next up is a big change to miniguns. Boosted damage up close, but with reduced max range. Boat minigun damage increased to 6 to 12 from 2 to 10 damage. All minigun damage now drops faster, reduced to 200 to 300 meters from 250 to 500 meters. That's a pretty decent sized buff overall. Countermeasures, IR flares, reduced reload to allow aircraft to get back into the combat faster. Pop more flares to increase duration of the protection slightly. This was an issue for jets as they pop flares only once. It could be relocked almost right away previously. They've reduced the reload time from 15 seconds down from 20, increased the amount of flares, and they say they work better against passive radar missiles. Heat Seeker, Stinger missiles, and Igla. Up next is ECM Jammer. Reduced reload like on IR flares, longer protection than flares, but also longer reload. The longer protection allows you to stay in combat for a bit. With flares, you have to run away almost immediately. It can also be used to prevent lock-ons as an option for very defensive players. Reduce the reload time to 20 seconds down from 25. Fire extinguisher. Lowest reload of all countermeasures every 8 seconds as it does not prevent any damage incoming. It just removes the effects of mobility hits. Active protection. Major change. Reduce both uptime and downtime. This means players will have to time usage better. It will no longer stop a complete strafe from an aircraft. Improve reliability when active. Reload time reduced to 22.5 seconds, down from 35, but its uptime is halved to 2.5 seconds. The red light will no longer appear when the protection system is on cooldown as well. IR smoke. Reload changed to be in line with other countermeasures, reduced to 15 seconds, down from 25 seconds. And smoke screen cooldown's been reduced down to 12 seconds. Air vehicle changes. Below radar is back. Previously, there was no reason to fly at low altitude in air-versus-air combat, as flying low only prevented the player from aiming upwards. It was also extremely hard to avoid lock-ons from enemy aircraft, as they could chase you, and physical cover barely helped against enemies above you. Below radar has been enabled on all vehicles. This means locks on your aircraft cannot be completed when below a certain height. Below radar triggers below 25 meters for helicopters and below 50 meters for jets. Affects all vehicle-based AA missiles, but none of the infantry-based ones. Watch the ground for Stinger-wielding infantry. Critical hits for air vehicles have been retooled as well, so that they impair your mobility but not crash and kill yourself. So it's going to be a little bit of a buff to the pilots. AA missiles also hit consistently across the board now. They'll no longer fly through transport choppers or scout helicopters. Jets. They've reintroduced the rock, paper, scissors model by making jets more powerful against scout helicopter and less so against both the IFV and overall less powerful MAA. Damage of jets against scout helicopters has been increased 20%, reduced against IFV and MAA. The attack jet's primary, the 30mm, enabled speed inheritance to improve crosshair accuracy. Damage increased against scout helicopters. Attack jet's secondary, the Hydra rockets. They updated the reticle and range reduced to 750 meters. Stealth jets have been tinkered with as well. Double the amount of AA missiles carried, heat seekers, passive radar, and active radars. Primary weapon damage increased against scout helicopters. Attack helicopters also had their speed inheritance removed from the co-pilot gunner seat, reduced range of rockets to 750 meters. And then the primary smart rockets, replenish time reduced to 16 seconds from 18. And next is water vehicle. All primary weapons are now more evenly balanced against each other. Boat mobility improved with faster reverse, and angle damage is a bigger factor, allowing for more skillful positioning. You now take less damage with good angles towards your opponent. Think the front of the boat towards them, but more damage from a bad angle. Think perfect side shot. Tank shells are less likely to inflict critical hits due to the new angle multipliers. The 25mm, highest damage per magazine, good against infantry. They've tweaked everything from blast damage to the gravity of this thing and some of the angles with some of the damage. So a mixture of buffs and nerfs, but they did reduce the damage against tanks. 30mm, highest damage output over time against ground vehicles, delivers damage very quickly, very low range. A damage reduction to 24 from 30. Blast damage has been reduced to 22 versus 25. But they also increased the blast radius to 5 meters from 3 meters. Damage reduced against tanks. Again, a mixture of buffs and nerfs. The burst cannon, very high damage output against aircraft, good at range. Damage reduced to 8 from 10. And they messed with the auto-replenish delay to 12 seconds, down from 20. Passive radars were also tweaked, but it also follows the rules of the MAA we covered before. Laser guided. The magazine count was normalized at 2 on all boats. Auto-replenish is now 15 seconds on all boats. Transports, the rib. They've improved the survivability of the rib finally. No longer is it a floating casket. Health increased to 750 from 500, and there was a rear bonus damage. That's been removed. Now we're going to cover the actual land vehicle changes. They've improved velocity and handling and tweaked all weapons to make them viable options. They've increased the size of active protection shield. Now works better while moving. Main battle tanks have pretty much been completely overhauled. They've improved survivability in vertical environments. Bad back angles now cause more damage. Increased speed and acceleration, normalized the faction differences somewhat. Angle multipliers have been changed. The handling of the M1 Abrams, they've improved the acceleration and top speed up to 61 kilometers per hour from 53. The T90 increased maintained top speed to 57, up from 54. And the handling of the Type 99, the top speed is now 60 kilometers per hour, up from 54. The AP shell, all the shells have been overhauled. This is the default shell, good at killing infantry and vehicles. They've reduced impulse to give helicopters a better chance of recovering after a hit. Sabo shells excels at taking out armor due to high velocity, making it very hard to dodge, and better against aircraft. HE shell is up next and probably changed the most. With Sable shells covering the anti-armor role, HE has been turned into the HEDP, high explosive dual purpose, offering better damage against infantry, great against destructible cover. Blast damage increased to 120 from 50. The inner blast radius reduced to 1.3 from 1.5 meters, but the actual blast radius increased to 5.5 meters. And that pesky reload time, it's been reduced to 3 seconds from 4, and they increased the velocity by quite a bit. Guided shell is up next for the secondaries. Turned it into a valid long-range option comparable to laser-guided missiles. Damage no longer relies on what angle you hit your target, but it is consistent. It's been replenishing at 15 seconds from 30 seconds. Reduced time to reload to 4 seconds from 5 seconds. So there are undesignated hits and designated hits, both with some pretty drastic changes. Up next is a staff shell, and that's been changed pretty decently as well. Now a close medium range option to land critical hits on enemy vehicles, low ammo count, tracking similar to the MBT log. Bunch of changes here, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. The coaxial LMG, reduced overheat to allow for more generous use in sticky situations. LMG is intended as an easy and reliable anti-infantry option. They also messed with some of the suppression mins and maxes. The HMG has also been tweaked. Faster overheat but better velocity to signify its intended use as a long-range alternative to LMG. Damage and suppression reduced. Unlike the LMG, the HMG can hurt unarmored vehicles. So the velocity's been increased to 670 meters a second from 500, but they dropped some of the damage, and it overheats just a little bit quicker. The start damage reduced to 45 from 50, and damage reduced to 30 from 38. IFV, cannons can now shoot up higher to deal with verticality. Acceleration on steep slopes improved, which is big, because that thing couldn't crawl up an anthill. The 25mm HE shell has slightly improved damage against vehicles, greatly improved damage against infantry. HE shell should be seen as the all-around option. Again, tons of buffs and just a little bit of a nerf on the damage against tanks. The APFS DS shell improved damage against vehicles compared to the other two options. Damage increased to 32 from 24. Damage reduced against tanks. The canister shell, anti-infantry option compared to the other two shells. Changed the material in the canister, and the damage multiplier against helicopters increased just a little bit. The coaxial LMG, similar changes as to the tank LMG, but damage has also been increased to make it more competitive with TOW missiles and Zuni rockets, and it doesn't overheat as quickly. The Mobile AA, the LAV AD can climb mountains as well as its MAA siblings now. Damage of MAA cannons has been decreased against jets and tanks. The 20mm cannon on the MAA. Better choice against fast-moving targets, also known as jets, and easier to use than its 30mm counterpart. Drop-off moved to 600 to 1,000 meters. Maximum damage reduced to 12.6 from 15. Min damage to 4.2. And finally, they reduced the damage against infantry in general. 30mm, better at closer ranges within 800 meters than its 20mm counterpart. Perfect for going closer to the front lines and negating airspace. Drop-off moved to 700 meters from 1,000. Max damage reduced to 49 from 50. Min damage reduced to 20 from 42. Now, that's also been reduced against infantry, so no longer will you more than likely 5-shot somebody across the map. The Amtrak improved the survivability. The health has been buffed to 1250 versus 1,000. Look for that to be more of a factor on several different maps. Infantry balance changes. The majority of the changes for infantry sits in direct relation to the vehicle changes, sprinkled with some general improvements and balance changes for shotguns, and one of my favorites, the Mare's Leg. They also touched the battle pickups, the HVM and the M136CS, also known as the AT4. We're not going to cover those, but they have been changed pretty drastically, along with shotguns, one of the most controversial things since the last patch. They reduced efficiency of buckshot and flechette at medium range and balanced shotguns better against each other. So look for reduction of pellets on the UTS-15, Saga 12K, Dow 12, DBV-12, and the M1014 to improve balance. Damage drop-off reduced to 24 meters versus 32 and 25 versus 50 meters. The Mare's Leg has improved damage at medium range to give it an advantage over the 44 Magnum. Now damage drop-off starts at 60 meters from 45, so look for some heavy-hitting chest shots and one-bangs in the head from further distance. C4 has been tweaked completely. Damage has been reduced. With its throw distance and the absence of reactive armor blocking damage, it was too easy to destroy vehicles with. Increased time to resupply as well. The blast damage of C4 was reduced to 400 from 500. The inner blast radius reduced to 1 meter down from 2 meters, and the total blast radius reduced to 4 meters from 5 meters. There was a change to the M320GL, better velocity and blast damage, giving you 1 extra magazine. It's now able to land significant blast damage with all 3 shots combined. Next up is the 320 Dart. Apply changes similar to normal shotguns, more pellets, less damage, tighter cone. Performance should be more consistent. The assault gadget, the M26, increased accuracy when moving and aiming to be in line with other shotguns. Engineer changes. They remove the ability to use lock-on launchers in vehicles. Dumbfire launchers are still allowed. Vehicles are supposed to be able to get away from infantry. This was made nigh impossible when engineers could use lock-on launchers from vehicles. So no more javelins from little birds or scouts. The engineer gadget, the SRAW. The SRAW is now less extreme and more attractive to use. It has less damage but better velocity at close range and the ability to dumbfire. It also has more agile tracking for small corrections. The damage is reduced to 188 from 215, but the initial speed out has been doubled. Look for a mixture of nerfs and buffs with that. The Stinger, a dangerous point defense option. With drastically reduced acceleration, increased lock time, targets get a much better warning period than previous. High damage. They reduced the acceleration to 50 meters a second from 100. Lock time increased to 1.3 seconds from 1, and increased the damage 100 points to 270. So be careful with this. The Igla, similar to the Stinger, but more focused against jets with better velocity and hold lock mechanic. High damage again. The acceleration reduced to 75 meters a second from 125. Maximum speed reduced to 350 meters a second from 500 meters. And the lock time increased to 1.1 seconds from 1 second. Damage increased of that as well to 270. There's also a couple more nerfs and buffs there. The MBT law, match trajectory with the crosshairs. Still the same old law. The AA mine had some tweaks, changed behavior to work more like a mine with instant lock-on and reduced range. Allowed use with engineer launchers. This gadget is only supportive like AT mines. So the UCAV got touched again. It's been made weaker against vehicles, especially aircraft. Direct impact is against vehicles. Air burst is against infantry. You now get a fresh UCAV every 40 seconds from 60 seconds. The blast damage down to 200 from 400. And of course, they've changed some other things, including the air burst. That damage has been reduced to 125 from 200. The mortar was also touched. The mortar delay had been toned down just a bit. They've reduced the time before you can use to 15 seconds from 30. You'll also automatically get a new mortar every 60 seconds if yours goes boom. Support gadget, ammo box, and ammo pack. Most gadget resupply times have been tweaked to be more consistent and better balanced. Some of the grenades are 8 or 7 seconds. Some of the gadgets, such as airburst and smoke, are 7 seconds. The dart is 2.5, and C4 is 8 seconds, including engineer launchers being 8 seconds as well. Up next is the team play and objective play updates. With this release, they pinpoint some specific changes to help improve objective-based and squad team play. Marksman bonus removed. Marksman distance base points bonus removed, as its existence promotes a less objective play style. Now you get a flat score of 25 just like everybody else, but it shows the distance with parentheses. Objective score rebalance. When looking at stats like score per minute per game mode from launch, we identified some modes in need of a scoring boost. Conquest. Flag capture scored increased to 400 from 150. If you win the round, it's 3,000 versus 1,500. Obliteration. Bomb pickup, 150 versus 100. Bomb possession, 25 per tick from 10. And if you win that mode, you get 2,000 points versus 15. Rush. Disarm score increased to 500 from 400. MCOM destroy team-wide increased to 500 from 400. Rush win 3,000 versus 1,500. Squad leader replacement. Targeting inactive squad leaders was integrated by the Hardline team with some tweaks to the setup to promote active squad leaders. How does this work? Squad member requesting an order triggers a cooldown of 30 seconds. When it's left unanswered, it swaps the squad leader role to the requesting member. Attack order has also been fixed, so if something's defended or swapped, you have to redo it as well. There have also been a lot of changes in the netcode department. With this release, DICE is continuing their quest for the best netcode in a multiplayer game, including this time are fixes for a majority of the high tick rate known issues that were present in the summer patch, and some pretty great general optimizations as well. If you play on PC, you might have found some of the high tick rate servers and played at 60 Hz or more already. And with this release, DICE significantly improves upon this experience. What follows this is a pretty long list of some of the actual bug fixes going from 30 to 60 Hz or some of the higher tick rates. So we're not going to cover all of those because it's extremely detailed. Again, when the patch goes live, you'll see some of the details and a link to all these patch notes. They've also changed the performance overlay, updated tracking properties, all different types of colors, and things available to you to help you diagnose what's going on. And consoles, they revised the ping bar in the server browser and rental server UI to properly represent expected values. 5 bars, 0 to 50 ms. 4 bars, 50 to 100. 3 bars, 100 to 170. 2 bars, 170 to 220. 1 bar, are you connecting to China, bro? That's 220 ms to 300 ms. Next up is some of the UI improvements, and there's a couple good ones here. They added the hardline capture area visuals on the mini-map, which means if you're looking at your mini-map, you're going to see that cat point outlined in a color of your team, or if it's neutral, or an enemy hand, so you know exactly where to hunt your future prey. They've also added the hardline minimap mechanic that shows player icon relative elevation. If the player's above you, the icon scales up slightly with added transparency. If the player's below you, it scales down slightly with added transparency. Both states start scaling at 3.5 meter distance, below or above respectively, reaching final size at 7 meters plus. And true to life, usually the best is saved for last. Smoke has changed. No longer do the FLIR or IRNV see through them. That will make drastic changes on the vast majority of maps. Now you're going to have to be tactical with this smoke. So these patch notes were 30 plus pages long in PDF format. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this read through. Again, I did not cover every little detail because a lot of things had 5 to 10 tweaks about them, especially with the vehicles being rebalanced from primaries to secondaries. When the patch goes live, I'll try to get the public notes up, linked in the description and or the comments section, but more than likely, depending on how long this takes to render, and of course the YouTube compression monster, this might be up a little bit before the patch goes live. Battlefield is going to play drastically differently when it comes to vehicle balance and infantry versus vehicle balance, especially with below radar being back, and a lot of that changes. I can't wait to get my hands on it. As always, guys, thanks for watching, thanks for hanging out, and let me know what you guys think down below. We'll see you guys soon. Not on my end. No French drop.
Tank. Two tanks.
You can't hit me from there. Right, prone. That was 54 damage. That was big.